Traffic barely moved. Cars crept forward in short, tired bursts, then stopped again. The roads still held water from an earlier rain. Thin streaks of light slid across the asphalt, broken by brake lights and impatience. Aaliyah sat upright behind the wheel, both hands tight, eyes forward. She watched the line ahead of her, measured distance, steady breath. Late afternoons always felt heavy. Rent, groceries, supplies for the children's art class. Numbers lived in her head, even when she tried to rest. Her phone vibrated. She did not pick it up. She only glanced down, long enough to silence it. That was all. The traffic halted without warning. Her foot hit the brake a second too late. The sound came first. A dull knock, not loud, not violent, still final. Her body stiffened, heart raced. Heat rushed to her face. She knew before she looked what she had done. She pulled to the side at once. No denial, no delay. The car in front of her sat still, black, polished, too clean for a street like this. Aaliyah opened her door and stepped out. Cold air met her skin. Her knees felt weak. Repairs lived far beyond her plans. One mistake could erase months of careful balance. She stared at the back of the car and swallowed. If you have ever had 1 second change your sense of safety, you understand this moment. Pause here. Ask yourself this. Do you remember a meeting that altered your life without warning? Aaliyah forced herself to breathe. In, out, slow enough to stand. She checked the bumper first, then her own hands. They shook. Not from the sound. From the math already running in her head. Rent due in 9 days. Supplies she promised the kids. The freelance invoice still unpaid. She had no room for surprises. She leaned closer to the car. The surface reflected her face back at her, tense and unsure. She searched for damage, the way someone looks for proof of guilt. A scratch would cost more than she had saved. A dent would take choices away. Her throat tightened. She pressed her lips together and straightened. Waiting would not help. Hoping would not help. She stepped back, smoothed her jacket, and prepared to apologize before the other driver spoke. Her voice practiced words ahead of time. Clear, respectful, responsible. She told herself to stay calm. This was how life worked. You paid for mistakes, even small ones, especially small ones. She had learned that early. Behind her, a door opened. She did not turn right away. She gave herself one more breath, one more second of control. If you have ever worried about money more than fault, you know this pause. Footsteps reached her before his voice did. Measured, unhurried. Aaliyah turned. The man who stepped out of the black car did not rush. He did not scan the damage with sharp movements. He closed his door gently, as if time had slowed for him alone. He stood tall. Still, his expression gave nothing away. No frustration, no raised hands, no sigh. That unsettled her more than anger would have. He walked to the back of the car and looked once. Just once. Then he looked at her. Directly, without judgment. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. The words came fast, stacked on each other. Traffic stopped suddenly. I looked down for a second. "I'll cover whatever this costs." She waited for his reaction. He did not interrupt. He listened. When he spoke, his voice stayed level. Quiet. Controlled. "It's fine," he said. She blinked. "I'm sure It's barely anything," he added. She stared at him, unsure she heard correctly. He nodded once, as if closing a file. Something about his calm felt practiced, not cold, trained. For the first time since the sound of impact, her shoulders dropped. They stood there, two strangers. One mistake, no explosion. If you've ever prepared for the worst and met restraint instead, you know how disarming that feels. Aaliyah waited for the shift, for the moment where his patience would thin, for the hidden cost, for the tone to change. It did not. He stayed where he was, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes steady on hers. "You're sure?" she asked. Her voice softened, unsure how to receive mercy without terms. "I'm sure," he said. The quiet that followed felt heavier than noise. Cars passed. Someone honked farther down the road. Traffic resumed its rhythm, but neither of them moved back to their cars. Aaliyah noticed his eyes then, not sharp, not distant, focused in a way that made her feel seen instead of assessed. He noticed how she stood, straight, even while shaken, apologetic, without shrinking. Seconds stretched, too long for strangers, too brief for something forming. She felt it first, that pull that made her chest tighten without reason, the sense that this moment mattered more than it should. He felt it too. He shifted his weight slightly, as if surprised by his own stillness. "Thank you," she said finally. The words carried more than relief. He nodded again. Smaller this time. They both knew the exchange should end there. Neither rushed it. Some meetings linger before they explain themselves. "I'm Aaliyah," she said. He paused, as if weighing how much of himself to offer. "Ryan." No last names followed. No questions attached. The moment stayed simple by choice. They exchanged numbers out of habit, not promise. A precaution, a courtesy. Something that felt wiser than goodbye without one. Traffic pressed closer. Space narrowed. The street reminded them both where they were. Aaliyah stepped back first. "I'm glad you're okay." "So am I," he replied. His tone held something quieter than relief. They returned to their cars. Doors closed. Engines started. She checked her mirror before pulling out. He had not moved yet. He watched the road ahead, hands resting on the wheel, face still. She drove off. Half a block later, she realized her heart had not slowed. Not from fear, from something unsettled, something awake. Ryan waited until the lane cleared. As he merged back into traffic, he caught her car ahead of him for a brief second. A red light, a turn signal, gone. He did not know why the calm felt different this time. He only knew it did. Two lives resumed their paths. Neither stayed the same. Ask yourself this. Have you ever met someone for minutes and felt the rest of your life quietly shift? Aaliyah Johnson learned weight before joy. Childhood did not stretch wide for her. Space narrowed early. Bills lived on the kitchen table. Schedules ruled the walls. Voices stayed low during late nights, not from peace, but from fatigue. Her parents worked long hours. Morning shifts folded into evenings. Smiles showed up when energy allowed. Love showed up through effort, rather than rest. Aaliyah watched adults move through days without pause, carrying more than words ever shared. Responsibility arrived without warning. One day she colored at the table. Another day she packed lunches, not as a chore, as necessity. When adults moved fast, children learned faster. After school hours belonged to errands, not play. She learned which stores marked prices down late. She learned which neighbors needed help carrying groceries. She learned how to stay quiet while adults spoke about numbers and deadlines. Teachers praised her focus. Neighbors praised her manners. No one asked why such maturity formed so early. Her mother tried to shield her when strength allowed. Gentle touches. Notes slipped into backpacks. Promises whispered before sleep. Those moments felt brief, precious, fragile. Loss sharpened everything. Illness drained color from the home long before goodbye arrived. Hospital visits replaced weekends. Aaliyah learned waiting rooms before libraries. She learned how fear hides behind calm faces. When her mother passed, childhood closed. No ceremony marked the change. No announcement followed. Aaliyah stepped forward because no one else stood ready. She learned how grief works quietly. Tears came late. Strength arrived first. Bills shifted hands. Conversations shifted tone. Adults leaned on her without asking. She rose because falling never felt like an option. Adulthood arrived without permission. From that point forward, Aaliyah measured actions. Reckless choices held no appeal. Dreams adjusted towards survival. Safety ranked higher than passion. Care replaced risk. Friends drifted. Responsibilities stayed. By the time most people learned independence, Aaliyah had mastered endurance. She learned how to keep life steady without noise. She learned how to carry love through action rather than speech. This foundation shaped everything later. Some lives begin with preparation. Others begin with response. Grief did not arrive loudly for Aaliyah. It arrived through absence. Her mother's voice vanished first. The house grew quieter in ways no one spoke about. Plates stacked differently. Lights stayed on longer at night. Meals lost warmth even when food remained. People offered sympathy with careful faces. Cards arrived. Words repeated. None of them taught her how to wake up without guidance. Her mother had been the soft place, the balance between effort and rest. With her gone, everything tilted. Aaliyah watched her father move through days with his focus sharpened and his patience thin. He worked longer hours, came home later, spoke less. Pain stayed hidden behind routine. She stepped in where gaps appeared. Laundry folded itself into her evenings. Grocery lists became her responsibility. She learned which brands stretched farther and which treats mattered on hard days. Care lived in details. No one asked her age when responsibility needed filling. School continued. Grades stayed high. Teachers praised her resilience. Few noticed how rarely she raised her hand for help. Strength became expectation rather than achievement. Sleep shortened. Mornings began earlier. She learned how to move quietly through grief so others could stand. When friends spoke about plans, Aaliyah smiled politely. Parties felt distant. College dreams shifted toward what paid sooner. Stability mattered more than passion. Love did not disappear. It changed form. She loved through reliability, through showing up, through keeping the house running when emotions failed. She learned how to protect others by protecting herself. Adulthood settled without consent. There was no moment to question fairness. There was only movement forward. She learned how to swallow disappointment before it reached her voice. She learned how to keep her heart steady by keeping expectations low. That discipline shaped her future. Risk felt dangerous. Hope felt heavy. Trust required proof. By the time she entered her 20s, Aaliyah moved through life prepared for loss before joy. She built walls not to isolate, but to survive. Some people grow into adulthood. Others are pushed into it. By her late 20s, Aaliyah built a life that stayed modest on purpose. She chose predictability over flash, quiet over noise, stability over attention. Every decision traced back to one rule: do not risk what you cannot replace. Her apartment stayed small, but clean. Light entered through narrow windows. Art supplies filled one corner. Bills stayed organized in labeled folders. Control lived in order. She taught art at a community center 4 days a week. Children gathered around her tables with paint on their hands and hope in their eyes. She loved those hours. Teaching felt like giving breath to something still forming. She showed them how colors speak without words. She listened when they talked about fears they could not name. Kids trusted her easily. She smiled more there than anywhere else. Money remained tight. She filled gaps with freelance design work late at night. Logos, flyers, invitations. Work paid less when you stayed invisible. She accepted that. Friends asked why she never chased more. She never explained that survival felt safer than ambition. Her life moved on careful rhythms. Wake early, work steady, cook simple meals, sleep light. Weekends held errands and quiet walks. She kept noise out because silence felt earned. Romance stayed distant. She dated once or twice. Nothing stuck. Men wanted ease. She offered caution. She trusted slowly, because trust once broken demanded too much to rebuild. People often described her as calm. They did not see the discipline behind it. She carried joy in small moments. A child finishing a drawing. A client paying on time. A night where worry slept before she did. She created when energy allowed. Sketches filled notebooks she never shared. Art remained private, personal, something untouched by need. She believed a good life did not need applause. It needed balance. It needed enough. She never imagined anything would interrupt that balance. She did not know a single afternoon could undo years of careful planning. Some people survive loudly. Others learn how to disappear inside routine. Ryan Miller grew up surrounded by abundance and absence at the same time. His childhood home stretched wide, yet felt narrow. Rooms stayed filled with furniture chosen by designers. Voices echoed across polished floors. Schedules ran tight. Time belonged to plans rather than people. His father built success with precision. Meetings started early. Decisions carried weight. Praise arrived rarely, and only when earned. Emotion stayed out of view. Discipline filled the space instead. Ryan learned structure before comfort. Nannies rotated through seasons. Tutors followed calendars. Schools changed as expectations grew. He adjusted quickly because adjustment kept him praised. He learned how to read rooms. He learned when silence mattered more than questions. Affection existed, but it followed conditions. Performance earned attention. Results earned approval. Failure earned distance. His mother remained present yet distant, occupied with appearances and obligations. Family dinners happened on schedule. Conversations stayed light. Depth stayed avoided. Emotions complicated order, so order took priority. Ryan grew skilled at control. Private schools trained him to compete without attachment. Mistakes corrected quickly. Weakness stayed hidden. Leadership rewarded decisiveness rather than empathy. He absorbed those lessons without resistance. Friends came easily. Connections stayed shallow. Trust rarely deepened beyond convenience. By adolescence, expectations surrounded him. His name opened doors. His future carried weight before he chose it. He learned how to perform confidence even when uncertainty lived underneath. College refined those skills. Professors praised his focus. Peers admired his discipline. Networks formed. Deals discussed. His path narrowed toward influence. Warmth never disappeared. It remained buried. He learned to replace comfort with achievement. Control felt safer than closeness. Order felt stronger than vulnerability. By adulthood, Ryan measured value through outcomes. Success brought distance. Distance brought peace. He told himself this structure protected him. He did not realize what it cost. Some children grow learning how to feel safe. Others grow learning how to stay composed. Ryan did not stumble into leadership. He was shaped for it. From his early 20s, his life followed a deliberate track. Internships turned into analyst roles. Mentors spoke to him in quiet corners. Meetings replaced classrooms. He learned how power moved before he ever held it. Corporate spaces rewarded restraint. He watched senior executives speak without revealing anything personal. He noticed how silence carried authority. He noticed how emotion weakened position. He learned when to pause, when to nod, when to leave a room without explanation. Ryan adapted quickly. His name opened doors, but he stayed careful not to rely on it openly. He worked longer hours than required. He stayed late. He delivered results early. Performance became armor. Relationships followed a pattern. Brief, clean, controlled. He dated women who understood schedules and boundaries. Dinners stayed pleasant. Conversations avoided depth. Endings happened without conflict. He believed this approach protected everyone involved. Feelings complicated clarity. He avoided them. Boardrooms trained him to manage risk. People became variables. Decisions required distance. Personal attachment blurred judgment. He absorbed these lessons until they felt natural. By his early 30s, Ryan sat at the top of a global company. Press praised his focus. Shareholders trusted his restraint. Family admired his discipline. Headlines called him unreadable. He accepted that label without question. Emotional distance worked. It allowed him to lead without hesitation. It allowed him to walk away without regret. It allowed him to maintain control when others faltered. He convinced himself this was maturity. Moments of discomfort passed quickly. Loneliness stayed unnamed. Silence filled spaces where connection could have grown. He told himself fulfillment came later, after the next milestone, after the next expansion, after the next proof of worth. This belief settled deep. He did not know how much effort he spent maintaining distance until something challenged it. Some skills protect success. Others protect fear. Ryan believed control kept life stable. This belief did not arrive suddenly. It formed through years of watching what happened when order slipped. Missed calls led to tension. Emotional reactions led to consequences. Trust, once extended, created obligations he never wanted to manage. Control removed those risks. He planned his days down to the minute. Assistants filtered requests. Calendars stayed tight. Free time carried purpose. Even rest followed structure. Nothing entered his space without intention. This approach earned him peace. At least, that was what he told himself. Control meant fewer surprises, fewer questions, fewer moments where someone could ask for more than he wished to give. It allowed him to move forward without emotional debt. He saw people struggle when they let feelings lead. Relationships fell apart. Careers stalled. Decisions blurred. He kept distance to avoid those outcomes. Safety lived in predictability. Ryan rarely reflected on whether predictability satisfied him. Satisfaction felt irrelevant. Stability mattered more. He believed fulfillment came from achievement, not connection. Family reinforced this belief. Conversations praised discipline. Legacy mattered. Image mattered. Mistakes carried weight beyond the individual. He learned to see himself as a representative rather than a person. Control preserved reputation. In private moments, he sometimes sensed emptiness, not pain, absence. Quiet nights stretched longer than expected. Celebrations ended quickly. Applause faded faster than he anticipated. He dismissed those thoughts. Feelings disrupted efficiency. Efficiency built security. Security kept him safe. He believed this logic without challenge. Ryan did not consider that safety built on distance often lacks warmth. He did not consider that control, when held too tightly, isolates rather than protects. He saw life as something to manage rather than experience. That belief shaped every choice he made before meeting Aaliyah. Two people walked toward the same street from opposite directions. One learned safety through endurance. The other learned safety through control. Life does not prepare everyone the same way. The second time they saw each other felt quieter, yet heavier. Aaliyah stood near the counter of a small bookstore cafe, balancing a paper tray of markers and sketch pads against her hip. She had stopped in after work, drawn by the promise of discounted supplies, and a moment of calm before heading home. The place smelled of coffee and paper. Soft voices drifted between shelves. No rush, no pressure. She scanned a list on her phone, comparing prices, calculating what she could afford. The children's workshop needed new materials. She refused to show up unprepared. "Excuse me." The voice came from behind her. Familiar, steady. She turned slowly. For half a second, she did not place him. Then recognition landed, sharp and warm at the same time. The man from the road, the calm, the kindness. "You hit my car," he said, a hint of amusement touching his mouth. Her eyes widened. Then she laughed. Not polite laughter. Real. Surprised. Light. "I was hoping I wouldn't be remembered for that," she replied. "I promise I usually have better timing." He smiled fully this time. The expression changed his face. Less guarded. Less distant. "I'm relieved," he said. "I was starting to think my car had a reputation." They stepped aside as the line moved forward. The moment stayed easy, unforced. No tension, no apology needed this time. She noticed how natural the conversation felt. No rehearsed words, no caution, just presence. He noticed how relaxed she seemed outside the stress of traffic. Her shoulders lowered. Her voice softened. She looked comfortable among books and supplies, as if the space belonged to her. They ordered drinks without ceremony. He chose whatever the barista suggested. No preferences stated. No corrections offered. She caught that detail and said nothing. They found a small table by the window. Rain marks still clung to the glass. Light filtered through in quiet patterns. Neither mentioned work. Neither asked questions that carried weight. They talked about the books stacked near the register, about how the cafe hid from the street, about how some places felt easier to breathe in. Ease settled between them. Sometimes connection announces itself loudly. Sometimes it waits for the second meeting. The coffee arrived warm and simple. No ornate cups. No presentation meant to impress. Steam rose gently between them, filling the quiet space with comfort rather than ceremony. Aaliyah wrapped her hands around the mug and let the heat settle her fingers. She had not realized how tense her day had been until it eased. Ryan took a slow sip. He did not rush. He watched the room the way someone watches a pause, not an opportunity. Conversation unfolded without direction. She spoke first about the workshop, about children who mixed colors without fear, about how some of them stayed late just to finish one more drawing. Her words carried care rather than pride. She spoke as someone who valued process more than praise. He listened without interruption, not the polite waiting many people did. Real listening. Eyes steady. Body angled toward her. Silence allowed to stretch, until she finished her thoughts. He asked questions that stayed close to what she said. Not probing, not impressive, just curious. What do they draw when they feel unsure? He asked. She considered the question, then smiled. Doors, windows, roads. They draw ways out. He nodded as if filing that away. He shared little about himself at first, only that he traveled often, that schedules ruled his days, that he enjoyed places where no one expected anything from him. She did not press. She understood restraint. She had practiced it for years. Minutes passed unnoticed. Coffee cooled. The bookstore thinned out as the afternoon stretched toward evening. Their voices stayed low, matching the room. Ryan noticed something unfamiliar. Time felt unmeasured. He was not tracking his phone. He was not calculating his next obligation. The conversation required nothing from him except attention. That alone felt new. Aaliyah noticed something else. He never redirected the conversation toward himself. He did not compete for space. He did not interrupt with stories meant to impress. When she paused, he waited. That waiting mattered. They laughed at small things. A misprinted book title, a child's drawing displayed near the register. Humor arrived easily, without effort. Coffee became conversation. Conversation became comfort. Neither noticed the shift as it happened. It arrived quietly, like trust often does. Ryan surprised himself that afternoon. When the barista asked if he wanted anything else, he shook his head. No upgrades, no extras, no requests shaped by habit. He stayed with what he had. Simple felt right. He noticed the choice as he made it. How rare it felt to accept something without refining it. His life usually ran on adjustments, better options, faster paths, improved outcomes. This moment asked for none of that. They stayed seated long after their cups emptied. Aaliyah mentioned needing to leave soon. Supplies waited in her bag. Evening routines mattered. He did not counter with plans. He did not suggest extending the moment with dinner or another stop. He respected the boundary without naming it. That restraint surprised him too. Normally he controlled momentum. Here, he followed it. He chose to stay present rather than impressive, to listen rather than lead, to let the afternoon remain what it was without forcing more into it. He told her about places he liked that stayed quiet. Small restaurants tucked away from noise, walks taken without destination, moments where expectations loosened. He spoke carefully, selecting truths that did not carry weight. She nodded, understanding without probing. Simplicity stretched between them, like a shared language neither had practiced recently. Ryan felt his shoulders ease. The tension he carried without noticing softened. For the first time in years, he did not feel watched or measured. No one expected outcomes from him. No one needed proof. He noticed how his voice changed. Slower, warmer, less guarded. Aaliyah noticed too. She had met many men who filled space with ambition. Men who spoke of plans, titles, goals. Ryan spoke of pauses, of choosing quiet over noise, of finding relief in places without demand. That contrast caught her attention. When she stood to leave, he rose with her. Not rushed, not reluctant. He walked her to the door without touching her arm, without stepping too close. Outside, the street held its usual sounds. Cars passed. People moved. Inside, something had shifted. Ryan realized something unsettled him in a good way. He wanted more moments that asked nothing from him. He did not yet know what that meant. Aaliyah noticed his listening before she named it. Most people listened to respond. They waited for openings. They leaned forward only when the topic turned toward them. Ryan did none of that. He stayed with her words as if they mattered on their own. When she spoke about the children, he did not interrupt with solutions. He did not turn her stories into lessons or comparisons. He allowed them to exist. That choice felt rare. She tested it without meaning to. Paused mid-sentence. Shifted topics gently. He followed without confusion. When she mentioned her mother in passing, not as a confession, he did not rush to comfort. He acknowledged the weight with a nod, a quiet understanding that said, "I heard you." That mattered more than sympathy. She had grown used to people glazing over when conversations slowed, used to having to summarize pain into acceptable pieces. With him, she did not need to edit. He asked questions that stayed close to her words. What made you choose art? What keeps you there when days run long? No question felt like an evaluation. No tone suggested curiosity as performance. She answered honestly, because honesty felt safe. She spoke about how art gave children a place-to-place feelings they could not yet explain. How color carried emotion without needing permission. How teaching kept her steady when other parts of life felt uncertain. He listened, as if learning something valuable. That attention softened her guard. She found herself sharing small details. How she preferred mornings quiet. How she kept old notebooks filled with sketches she never showed anyone. How she liked routines because they held things together. He did not smile knowingly. He did not push for more. He respected the shape of what she offered. Aaliyah realized she had not checked the time once. That alone felt significant. In his presence, she did not feel like she needed to perform strength. She could simply be composed without effort. The difference felt subtle yet powerful. She recognized something then. Listening was not passive. It was intentional, and intention created trust faster than charm ever could. When she finally stood to leave, she felt a slight resistance in herself. Not attachment. Awareness. She noticed him watching her with the same calm attention he had given her words. This meeting felt different because it treated her inner life with care. She walked away, knowing something had changed. Boundaries formed without a single rule spoken. When Aaliyah said she needed to leave, Ryan did not ask why. He did not delay her with another story. He did not suggest plans that pressed beyond the moment. He accepted her timing as final. That acceptance settled something between them. They walked to the door together, not side by side in a way that suggested claim. Not distant either. A shared pace. Comfortable space. Respect without instruction. Outside, the air felt cooler. The street carried its usual motion. Nothing about the setting felt special. The moment did. Aaliyah adjusted the strap of her bag. I should get these supplies back before they close. Of course, he said. No disappointment in his tone. No attempt to extend the meeting by force. He did not ask for dinner. He did not ask for another coffee later in the week. He did not frame the future. That restraint told her more than words ever could. She had learned to read intent early in life. Pressure often disguised itself as interest. Silence often hid expectation. Ryan offered neither. He allowed space without withdrawing presence. I'm glad we ran into each other, she said. So am I, he replied, and left it there. They exchanged numbers again, lightly this time. No ceremony, no promise attached. A quiet acknowledgement that the door remained open, not pushed. As she stepped away, Aaliyah noticed how steady she felt. No rush of emotion, no confusion, just clarity. She appreciated that the meeting did not demand anything from her. Ryan watched her cross the street. He resisted the urge to follow, resisted the habit of moving things forward. He let the moment close naturally. That choice felt unfamiliar. Early boundaries often arrive as limits. This one arrived as trust. Pause here. Ask yourself this. Do you believe meetings are random, or do you believe some arrive exactly when they should? Aaliyah walked away from the bookstore cafe, with her bag pressed close to her side. The street looked the same as it always did. Cars passed. People hurried. Storefronts reflected the fading afternoon light. Nothing about the outside world marked the moment as important. Inside her, something had shifted. She replayed small details without trying. The way he waited before answering. The way he listened without steering the conversation. The ease that came from not being measured or rushed. She felt steady rather than stirred. Grounded rather than uncertain. That felt rare. She did not call it hope. She did not call it attraction. She called it awareness. For years, her life had followed careful lines. Work, home, responsibility. She had learned to recognize disruptions early and guard against them. This meeting did not feel like a disruption. It felt like alignment. Ryan stood outside the cafe longer than he intended. He watched her disappear down the block, then turned back toward the window. The quiet space behind the glass still held the echo of their conversation. He noticed how calm he felt. No urgency, no restlessness, no need to check his phone. That absence of pressure unsettled him. He replayed the meeting with the same restraint he applied to business decisions, searching for reason. He found none. Only feeling, only a sense that time had behaved differently around her. He did not label it fate. He did not label it chance. He only acknowledged that something had entered his life without asking permission. Both of them returned to their routines that evening. Aaliyah sorted supplies and prepared lesson plans. Ryan reviewed documents and answered messages. Their days continued as expected. Yet each carried the same quiet thought. This did not feel random. Some meetings do not arrive loudly. Some do not announce purpose. Some simply sit with you and wait to be understood. Before we continue this story, take a moment. Do you believe certain people arrive by chance, or do you believe timing has intention? If this chapter moved you, support the story. Like this video, share it with someone who believes in meaningful connections. Leave a comment and tell us what you think brought them together. Their connection did not begin with decisions. It began with repetition. Ryan called 3 days after the bookstore cafe. Not immediately, not strategically delayed either. He asked if she wanted coffee again. Same place, same time window, no framing, no expectations attached. Aaliyah said yes without hesitation. The answer surprised her. That meeting turned into another, then another. They never called them dates. They never defined what they were doing. They simply kept choosing the same spaces and the same calm. Sometimes they met for coffee. Sometimes they walked a short stretch of the city together after work. Sometimes they shared a simple meal in quiet places where no one watched closely. Ryan avoided restaurants that felt performative. Aaliyah noticed and appreciated that choice. They never dressed to impress. No effort to signal importance. Ryan wore simple jackets. Aaliyah stayed in clothes meant for comfort and movement. Neither commented on appearance. Attraction existed without announcement. Time unfolded gently between them. They spoke about books they liked, music that stayed with them. Small habits formed without discussion. Ryan learned she liked mornings quiet. Aaliyah learned he preferred to sit facing exits, a habit he never explained. They never asked, "What is this?" They never asked, "Where is this going?" That silence felt intentional rather than careless. Ryan noticed something unfamiliar about himself. He did not feel the urge to control pace. He did not plan next steps. He did not map outcomes. Each meeting ended without tension, without need to secure the future. Aaliyah noticed something else. She did not feel watched or evaluated. No one asked what she wanted long-term. No one measured her availability. She felt chosen without being claimed. That balance mattered. They allowed space between meetings. No constant messages. No checking in for reassurance. When they met again, conversation picked up naturally, as if no time had passed. Their connection built through consistency rather than intensity. Friends would not have recognized it as romance yet. No grand gestures, no declarations, no urgency, just presence. And presence, over time, became intimacy. Some love stories begin with sparks. Theirs began with steadiness. Comfort arrived before certainty. Ryan never pressed Aaliyah for more time than she offered. If she canceled due to work, he accepted it without disappointment. If she arrived late, he waited without comment. His reactions stayed consistent, calm, and free of expectation. That steadiness mattered to her. She had grown used to people who measured interest through availability, who counted responses, who asked for explanations. Ryan did none of that. He treated her time as her own. They spent evenings in quiet settings, simple meals, walks through familiar streets. Sometimes they sat in silence without filling it. That silence never felt awkward. Ryan noticed how easily he relaxed around her. He did not feel the need to impress. He did not rehearse stories. He did not highlight achievements. His voice stayed natural. His posture loosened. Aaliyah noticed how rarely she braced herself. She did not prepare for mood shifts or hidden expectations. She could arrive as she was, tired or quiet, without fear of misreading the moment. Comfort showed itself in small ways. He remembered how she took her tea. She noticed how he avoided crowds. He offered his jacket once when the evening cooled, then did not mention it again. She folded it neatly when she returned it. Touch stayed minimal, intentional. A brief hand at the small of her back to guide her through a doorway. A gentle brush of fingers when passing something across a table. Nothing lingered beyond consent. That restraint deepened trust. They never discussed pace. They felt it. Comfort grew from respect rather than intensity. It did not rush. It did not demand proof. It allowed both of them to remain whole. Aaliyah found herself sleeping better on nights they met. Ryan noticed his workdays felt less heavy. Neither traced those changes out loud. Their connection did not disrupt their lives. It settled into them. Pressure often disguises itself as passion. This felt different. Emotional safety arrived in pieces, not promises. Aaliyah noticed it first in her body. Her shoulders stayed relaxed when she was with him. Her breath stayed even. She did not rehearse words before speaking. She did not second-guess pauses. That ease felt earned. She began sharing small truths. Not confessions. Ordinary things that still carried weight. How certain songs made her quiet. How she preferred order because chaos once took too much from her. How she needed time alone to reset after long days. Ryan received those truths without fixing them. He did not offer solutions. He did not redirect her feelings into advice. He acknowledged them and let them stand. That response felt unfamiliar and grounding. In return, he shared carefully. He spoke about long hours, about expectations that never lifted, about how quiet spaces helped him think. He avoided details that carried status. He spoke in ways that stayed human. Aaliyah listened the same way he did. She did not interrupt. She did not ask him to explain himself further than he wished. She respected the edges of his words. They learned each other's signals. When one needed space, the other did not chase. When one felt distant, the other stayed present without pressure. Trust formed through predictability rather than reassurance. Ryan noticed something changing inside him. He stopped compartmentalizing their time. He did not shift into work mode when his phone buzzed. He did not calculate how much attention was appropriate. He stayed where he was. That presence felt vulnerable. Aaliyah noticed she no longer guarded every detail of her life. She spoke freely about her days. She let him see her tired. She let him see her joy. She did not fear being misunderstood. They laughed more often. Not loudly, gently. Shared humor that came from understanding rather than performance. Emotional safety did not mean complete openness. It meant freedom from defense. They trusted that silence would not be used against them. They trusted that honesty would not be punished. They trusted that distance would not equal rejection. That trust deepened their connection quietly. Love did not announce itself. It settled. Ryan kept his world separate without announcing the choice. It showed up in what he did not say. He never mentioned the scale of his work. He spoke about meetings without names attached. Travel appeared as distance, not status. Long days passed without explanation beyond. Work ran late. Aaliyah noticed the pattern and did not challenge it. When they met, his phone stayed face down. Messages waited. Calls went unanswered until later. He did not apologize for it, and she did not expect him to. The time they shared felt protected, not borrowed. He chose places that carried no connection to his professional life. Quiet cafes, small restaurants, walks where no one looked twice. He avoided rooms where recognition could enter. He avoided settings where questions followed. This was not deception. It was preservation. Ryan had learned early that visibility came with cost. People wanted access. Opinions followed success. Curiosity rarely stayed neutral. He had built habits to keep parts of himself untouched by expectation. With Aaliyah, those habits stayed intact. He did not introduce her to colleagues. He did not invite her into spaces tied to his work. Not because he dismissed her, but because he feared contamination. His world ran sharp, demanding, unforgiving. He believed bringing her into it would bruise something gentle. That belief stayed unspoken. Aaliyah sensed it without accusation. She noticed how his posture shifted near larger buildings, how his voice tightened when work came up, how quickly he redirected conversation back to quieter ground. She let him. Ryan watched how easily she accepted the boundary. No curiosity disguised as concern. No pressure masked as care. She allowed him to arrive as he was without demanding proof. That acceptance deepened his restraint. He told himself he would share more later, when timing felt right, when certainty arrived. For now, keeping his world separate felt safer. He did not realize that safety can become distance if held too long. At this stage, the balance worked. They built closeness without exposure, trust without disclosure, affection without possession. Ryan believed he was protecting something. He did not yet question what. Aaliyah noticed the shape of his silence and chose respect over curiosity. She understood silence. She had lived with it long enough to know when it protected and when it warned. With Ryan, his quiet did not feel evasive. It felt contained, intentional, like a door closed to keep something steady inside. She did not ask about his job beyond what he offered. She did not search for clues. She did not test boundaries to measure how far they stretched. She believed that what mattered would surface when ready. That choice did not come from passivity. It came from confidence. Aaliyah trusted her instincts. They had kept her safe before. She trusted that pushing for answers too early often broke what patience could build. She valued rhythm over revelation. When he spoke about long days, she listened without pressing. When travel pulled him away, she wished him well and returned to her routines. She did not mark time. She did not keep score. This restraint surprised her. In past connections, unanswered questions stirred anxiety. Here, they did not. She felt secure without knowing everything. She felt respected without explanation. Ryan noticed her restraint and felt relief. He did not brace for interrogation. He did not prepare defenses. He did not fear being reduced to labels. She accepted the version of him he offered without asking for proof. That acceptance invited him to soften. He found himself sharing more in small ways, not facts, feelings. He spoke about pressure without naming sources. He spoke about responsibility without listing titles. He spoke about fatigue without complaint. Aaliyah received those words with care. She did not interpret silence as rejection. She did not mistake boundaries for distance. She understood that trust sometimes grows through patience rather than disclosure. Their love formed where ego stayed quiet. No one demanded center stage. No one needed to be right. No one tried to possess or impress. They met each other where they stood and stayed there. That choice mattered. Because love does not deepen through answers alone. It deepens through respect. Two people built something without forcing it into shape. They allowed space to exist without fear. They allowed time to speak without interruption. Love grew because neither tried to lead with pride. Ryan's work existed beside Aaliyah, never with her. It showed up as early mornings and late evenings, as calls he stepped away to take, as messages he read without reacting, as days where his attention carried a weight he did not explain. When she asked how his day went, he answered in broad strokes. Busy, long, productive. He never named companies, never named roles, never named stakes. His language stayed neutral, stripped of identifiers. Aaliyah noticed the pattern and adjusted without comment. When they met after work, Ryan arrived already transitioned, jacket loosened, shoulders lowered, phone face down. Whatever world he stepped out of remained behind an invisible line he never crossed. Sometimes she caught glimpses by accident, a document left open too long before he closed it, a conversation paused when she entered the room, a look that sharpened briefly when a particular number appeared on his screen. He redirected quickly. He spoke about meetings as concepts rather than events. He spoke about travel as distance rather than destination. He spoke about decisions as necessary rather than impactful. This was not dishonesty. It was containment. Ryan had learned how easily work bled into everything else, how quickly people made assumptions, how curiosity turned into entitlement. He guarded the edges of his professional life because once crossed, they never returned to normal. With Aaliyah, normal mattered. He wanted their time untouched by performance. He wanted to arrive without hierarchy following him. He wanted to be heard without position altering the balance. So he withheld details. He chose silence over explanation, distance over disclosure. He told himself, this kept things simple. Aaliyah sensed the effort behind his restraint. She noticed how carefully he phrased answers, how rarely he complained, how he never sought validation for what he carried. She did not ask for more. Still, tension formed quietly, not from suspicion, from separation. Ryan's world pressed in around him during the day. At night, he stepped into a calmer space with her. The contrast sharpened over time. He felt the divide more clearly with each meeting. Two versions of himself existed side by side. He kept the wall standing because lowering it felt irreversible, and irreversible changes frightened him more than silence ever could. Ryan's family existed in his life like a constant presence he never introduced. They did not call often, yet their influence stayed close. Expectations followed him into every decision, even when their voices were absent. He carried them the way some people carry rules learned too early to question. Family gatherings followed structure. Appearances mattered. Conversations stayed measured. Success spoke louder than comfort. Questions centered on outcomes, not feelings. Ryan learned long ago which parts of himself belonged at the table and which stayed quiet. He never spoke of these gatherings with Aaliyah. When holidays approached, he framed them as travel obligations. When family calls came in, he stepped away. He returned composed, unchanged in tone. He did not bring the weight back with him. Aaliyah noticed how his posture shifted after those calls, not tense, guarded, as if something had been reinforced rather than resolved. Ryan understood his family's expectations clearly. They valued alignment, legacy, continuity. Relationships served purpose. Partners fit roles. Choices reflected on more than the individual. Love to them required approval before expression. He had never challenged this structure openly. It had shaped him too thoroughly. He knew how easily affection became negotiation. He knew how quickly warmth cooled when standards were not met. Aaliyah did not exist in their world, not because she lacked worth, but because she did not match the image his family held as correct. She lived outside their circles. She worked quietly. She valued simplicity. She carried history that could not be summarized cleanly. Ryan believed introducing her would invite judgment. He feared that judgment would reach her. He feared seeing her reduced to categories. He feared her being asked to justify herself. He feared watching her shrink under expectations she never agreed to meet. So he kept that world separate. This choice brought comfort and conflict at the same time. He protected her from pressure. He protected himself from confrontation, yet the wall grew taller with each avoidance. Aaliyah sensed the absence without naming it. She noticed how certain topics never entered their conversations, how future references stayed vague, how names remained unspoken. She did not demand clarity, but the silence carried weight. Family expectations did not argue with Ryan. They waited. And waiting, he knew, always came with cost. Ryan never questioned Aaliyah's worth. That was never the issue. What unsettled him lived deeper and quieter. He believed the world he moved through would press against her in ways she did not deserve. He believed it would ask her to become someone else. He pictured her in rooms filled with polished conversations and measured smiles. He imagined eyes assessing her background before hearing her voice. He imagined questions framed as courtesy but shaped as tests. He knew those rooms well. They rewarded polish over sincerity. They favored confidence learned early. They treated softness as something to manage rather than honor. Aaliyah did not belong there because she refused to perform. She moved with honesty. She spoke with care rather than calculation. She valued meaning over impression. Ryan believed those qualities would be misunderstood or dismissed. He told himself he was protecting her. He believed that if he brought her into his world, she would be asked to explain her choices, her work, her life. He believed she would be judged for not fitting a mold she never chose. He could already hear the questions. What does she do? Where did she come from? Does she understand what this life requires? Those questions carried sharp edges beneath polite tones. Ryan had learned to survive them. Aaliyah should not have to, so he kept the worlds apart. When she spoke about her day, he listened fully. When he spoke about his, he filtered carefully. He allowed her to exist without the weight of his environment pressing down on her. Yet this belief carried a flaw. By deciding where she belonged, he removed her choice. He did not ask whether she wanted to see that world. He did not trust her strength to decide how she might meet it. He assumed fragility where resilience lived. Aaliyah sensed this imbalance without naming it. She noticed how he sometimes studied her, as if measuring her against something unseen. She noticed how certain topics caused him to withdraw slightly, not cold, protective. She did not feel insulted. She felt excluded. Not from love, from truth. That exclusion planted quiet tension. Ryan believed separation preserved peace. He did not yet realize that withholding can create distance, even when intentions remain kind. Belonging, he would learn later, is not granted. It is chosen. Ryan's deepest fear had nothing to do with exposure. It had everything to do with impact. He watched how carefully Aaliyah lived, how she protected her routines, how she guarded the small, steady life she had built through discipline and restraint. He saw how peace mattered to her more than possibility, and he feared being the force that disrupted it. His world moved fast and demanded constant adjustment. Pressure followed every decision. Visibility invited opinion. Success attracted intrusion. Even quiet moments carried expectation. He had learned how easily balance could be lost. Aaliyah's life felt different. Her days held structure without urgency. Her work fed purpose rather than image. Her evenings belonged to her, not obligations. She lived without constant observation, without the need to perform. Ryan believed introducing his world would pull her out of that steadiness. He feared the questions she would face, the attention she would draw, the assumptions people would make about her motives. He feared she would lose the calm she worked so hard to preserve. More than that, he feared watching her change. He had seen people reshape themselves to survive his environment. He had watched softness harden. He had watched boundaries erode. He had watched ambition replace contentment. He did not want to be responsible for that shift, so he chose distance. He told himself that love sometimes meant restraint, that care meant not inviting someone into harm, that keeping his world separate was an act of respect. Yet that belief came with consequence. Each time he withheld, he reinforced the wall. Each time he avoided truth, he deepened separation. Each time he decided on her behalf, he denied her agency. Aaliyah sensed the weight of his caution. She felt it when conversations turned away from the future, when plans stayed contained within safe margins, when his presence remained steady but guarded. She did not feel unloved. She felt protected to the point of exclusion. That distinction mattered. Ryan believed he was preserving something delicate. He did not see how silence could slowly erode trust. He did not realize that protection without inclusion can feel like limitation. Tension did not arrive as conflict. It arrived as unanswered space. Love can survive many things. Distance is not always one of them. The bathroom light felt too bright that morning. Aaliyah stood still, one hand resting on the sink, the other holding something that weighed more than it should have. The apartment was quiet. No traffic noise yet. No children laughing in the hallway. Just the soft hum of the old refrigerator and her own breath, shallow and careful. She had not planned this moment. The week before, she blamed exhaustion on work. Long days at the community center, late nights finishing freelance designs. She told herself her body needed rest, nothing more. But when her routine shifted again, when time stretched beyond what felt normal, doubt settled in. She bought the test without ceremony. No panic. No drama, just instinct. Now she stared at the result, her mind refusing to rush. For a long moment, she felt nothing. Then warmth spread through her chest. Not excitement, recognition, something ancient and steady. Her hand moved to her stomach without instruction, fingers pressing lightly, as if to confirm what her eyes already knew. A life had begun. Joy followed quietly, not loud enough to overwhelm. Just enough to soften her face. She pictured small things without meaning to. Tiny socks, crayons, on a table, a child's hand tugging at her sleeve. Then fear arrived, not as a shock, but as a calculation. Her income, her space, her energy. The life she had built on balance now asked to stretch. She sat on the edge of the tub, grounding herself against the cold porcelain, letting both emotions exist without argument. She did not cry. She breathed. Her thoughts went to Ryan, uninvited and unavoidable. His calm presence, his careful boundaries, the wall he never lowered. She wondered how this news would land in a life built on control. She knew one thing with certainty. She would not hide from this. Whatever came next, she would face it with honesty. Some moments divide life into before and after. This was hers. The joy did not disappear after that morning. It stayed with Aaliyah through the day, quiet and persistent, While she taught, she noticed it in small ways, in how her voice softened when she spoke to the children, in how she smiled longer at their drawings, in how the room felt warmer even when the air stayed the same. At the same time, fear kept pace. It walked beside her as she packed supplies. It followed her home. It sat with her during dinner when she could not finish her plate. It waited patiently, never rushing, never shouting. Joy felt instinctive. Fear felt practical. She lay awake that night, one hand resting on her stomach, the other folded beneath her head. She did not imagine a future filled with perfection. She imagined work, tired mornings, adjustments. She imagined loving someone more than she had ever loved anything before. That thought steadied her. Then reality pressed closer. She thought about Ryan's world, about the distance he kept between his life and hers, about the care he took to control outcomes, about how often he spoke of timing and responsibility, without saying what those words meant. She did not doubt his kindness. She doubted his readiness. Fear whispered questions she could not answer yet. Would he see this as disruption? Would he see it as risk? Would he try to solve it instead of feel it? Joy answered with its own certainty. This child already existed, not as an idea, not as a possibility, as a presence. She did not weigh options. She weighed truth. Aaliyah had learned long ago that avoiding reality only delayed pain. Facing it early often hurt less than carrying secrets. She promised herself one thing that night. She would speak to Ryan directly, not over the phone, not through careful wording. She would stand in front of him and tell him the truth as it was. Whatever followed would belong to both of them. She fell asleep eventually, not calm but resolved. Joy and fear did not cancel each other. They held hands. Aaliyah did not rush to call him. She let 2 days pass, not out of doubt, but out of care. This was not news meant for a screen or a rushed conversation. It required space, presence, a moment that could not be paused or misunderstood. She chose her timing carefully. She waited until her classes ended early one afternoon. She tidied her apartment without knowing why. She changed clothes twice, then settled on something simple, comfortable, honest, nothing chosen to persuade. On the bus ride across town, she watched the city pass in familiar frames. Storefronts, side streets, people moving with their own purposes. Life continued, unaware that hers had shifted. Her thoughts stayed clear. She did not rehearse speeches. She did not plan responses. She did not prepare for every outcome. She knew how easily preparation turned into defense, and she did not want to arrive guarded. She wanted to arrive truthful. As the bus slowed near his office district, her chest tightened, not with regret, with awareness. She understood that once spoken, the truth would change things. Silence would never be an option again. She stepped off and stood still for a moment. This was not about asking permission. This was not about negotiation. This was about honesty. She sent him a short message, asked if he was available to talk, said she was nearby, did not explain more. His reply came quickly, simple, direct. Come up. That answer steadied her. She walked the final block with measured steps. Each one felt deliberate. She thought about the child she already loved. She thought about the man she had grown close to. She did not imagine outcomes. She focused on integrity. By the time she reached the entrance, her breathing had slowed. She knew this much. If love meant anything real, it would have to hold truth without conditions. She pushed through the doors, carrying both fear and certainty with equal weight. The building rose higher than Aaliyah expected. Glass stretched upward in clean lines. Steel reflected the sky without distortion. Everything about the structure spoke of certainty. Decisions made inside these walls carried weight far beyond the street below. She paused just inside the entrance. The lobby smelled polished and controlled. Voices stayed low. Footsteps moved with purpose. People walked quickly, eyes forward, as if time itself demanded obedience here. Aaliyah felt small, not in worth, but in contrast. This was not her world. She approached the desk and gave his first name. The receptionist nodded without question. A badge printed smoothly. An elevator opened almost immediately. As the doors closed, Aaliyah caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. She looked the same as she had that morning. Simple clothes, Calm face. No armor. She took comfort in that. The elevator climbed silently. Numbers rose. Floors passed. With each level, she felt the distance between this place and her own life sharpen. This building valued certainty. Her life had taught her flexibility. When the doors opened, the air felt different. Quieter. Thicker. Offices lined the hall, separated by glass and muted light. Conversations happened behind closed doors. Ryan waited near the end of the corridor. Here, he looked different. His posture straightened. His expression sharpened. The ease she knew stayed present but subdued, like something carefully managed. He greeted her warmly, yet the environment pressed against him, shaping his presence. "This way," he said. She followed him into his office. The room overlooked the city. Desks stayed clear. Screens displayed numbers she did not read. The space carried authority without decoration. Aaliyah stood still. This place symbolized everything he kept separate. Control, order, expectation. She understood then why he guarded this world so carefully. She also understood that the truth she carried could not be softened by surroundings. She turned to face him, heart steady, and spoke. Ryan listened without moving. Aaliyah spoke plainly, no build-up, no dramatic framing. She told him she was pregnant. She told him she had taken time to be sure. She told him she came because honesty mattered more than comfort. When she finished, silence held the room. Ryan did not interrupt. He did not sit down. He did not pace. His face stayed composed, as if he were receiving a report rather than a truth that changed everything. Inside, something fractured. He had trained himself to manage information, not absorb emotion. This news landed in a place his training did not reach. Still, control stepped in first. It always did. He asked a few questions. Calm, practical, timelines, details, certainty. His voice stayed even, professional, careful not to rise or fall. Aaliyah answered without defensiveness. She watched him closely, not searching for excitement, only for presence. He nodded, once, twice. When he spoke again, his words stayed measured. He acknowledged responsibility. He acknowledged the reality. He did not deny the child. He did not question her integrity. But he did not step closer. He leaned against the desk instead, creating distance without naming it. The building seemed to support him, reinforcing the posture he knew best. "This changes things," he said. "Yes," she replied. "It does." Another pause followed, longer this time. Ryan's thoughts moved quickly, organizing risk and consequence, reputation, family, structure. He did not yet allow himself to feel fear or wonder. Those came later, if at all. He believed calm equaled care. Aaliyah felt the difference immediately. Not rejection. Separation. She recognized this version of him. The one shaped by this space. The one who solved rather than felt. She waited, giving him room to reach something deeper. He did not. Ryan believed composure protected everyone in the room. He believed emotion would complicate clarity. He did not yet realize that clarity without empathy cuts. When he finally spoke again, his voice stayed steady. "We should talk about what comes next." The phrase sounded neutral. It was not. Ryan chose his words with care. Not care shaped by tenderness, but care shaped by calculation. He spoke slowly, as if pacing could soften impact. He talked about timing first, about responsibility, about how lives changed when plans shifted. He did not raise his voice. He did not place blame. His tone remained gentle, almost reasonable. That made what followed harder to hear. He told her he cared about her. He said he respected her strength. He said he believed she deserved stability. Then he said they should not continue. Aaliyah felt the sentence land before it finished. Ryan framed his decision as concern. He spoke about how complicated his life was, about how public his world could become, about how pressure followed him into every corner. He said her life was quieter, safer. He said adding his world to hers would bring strain she never asked for. He called it protection. He said he did not want her pulled into conflicts she did not create. He did not want the child growing under scrutiny. He did not want expectations shaping something that should remain simple. He believed he was choosing the lesser harm. Aaliyah listened without interruption. She heard care in his words, but she also heard finality. This was not a conversation, it was a conclusion. He did not ask what she wanted. He did not ask how she felt. He assumed responsibility meant removal. Ryan believed distance would reduce damage. He believed ending the relationship would preserve what they had before complexity arrived. He believed love sometimes required stepping back, rather than stepping forward. Aaliyah recognized the pattern immediately. This was the wall he never lowered, now reinforced by fear. She did not argue. She did not plead. She did not explain why his reasoning hurt. She understood something he did not yet see. Protection chosen without consent is still control. When he finished, the room felt colder. Ryan waited for her response, expecting resistance or relief. What he received was silence. Ryan moved toward the desk with purpose. The motion felt rehearsed, as if his body knew what came next before his heart caught up. He opened a drawer, removed a slim folder, and placed it on the surface between them. Paper slid forward with a soft sound that carried too far in the quiet room. He did not look at her as he spoke. "I want to make sure you're taken care of," he said. His voice stayed even. "Careful. This covers everything you'll need. Housing, medical costs, time off work, security." He flipped the folder open and turned it toward her. Numbers filled the page. Clean, precise, more than she had ever seen attached to her name. Enough to solve problems she had learned to live with. Enough to remove uncertainty from most lives. Ryan finally looked up. "This isn't about walking away," he added. "This is about making sure nothing becomes harder than it needs to be." Aaliyah stared at the paper without leaning in. She understood what the check represented. In his world, solutions came with structure. Money replaced mess. Distance replaced conflict. Problems reduced to transactions. He believed this was responsible. He believed this proved care. He believed this closed the situation cleanly. Aaliyah felt something settle in her chest, heavy and clear. The check did not offend her. It clarified everything. He had reduced a life to a ledger entry, reduced love to logistics, reduced a child to a line item that could be resolved. She looked around the office again. The clean lines, the ordered space, the city framed neatly behind glass. This room trained people to believe everything had a price. She met his eyes. He searched her face for relief, for gratitude, for confirmation that he had done the right thing. He did not find it. Aaliyah realized something in that moment. This offer was not meant to support her choice. It was meant to erase her from his. She closed the folder gently and slid it back across the desk. She did not raise her voice. She did not show anger. Her calm unsettled him more than refusal ever could. Aaliyah stood straight. She did not touch the folder again. She did not glance at the numbers a second time. Her decision had already settled long before this moment found words. "I don't need this," she said. Her voice stayed calm, steady, clear. Ryan frowned slightly, not in anger, but in confusion. In his world, refusal followed negotiation. This did not. "This isn't about pride," he said carefully. "It's about support." She shook her head once. Slow, certain. "This is about control," she replied. "And I won't raise my child inside it." The words landed without accusation. They landed as truth. She told him she would take responsibility for her life, as she always had. She told him she would raise the child with honesty, not silence. She told him she would not allow her child to become something managed or minimized. Ryan tried to speak. She lifted her hand gently, not to stop him, but to finish. "I didn't come here to ask for permission," she said. "I came because the truth mattered. What you do with it is yours. What I do with it is mine." She stepped back. The distance between them felt final in a way neither had named before. Ryan watched her gather her bag. He said her name once, softly, not as command, not as authority, as a man realizing something had slipped beyond reach. She paused at the door, turned, and met his eyes. "This child will know where they come from," she said. "They will also know they were never a problem to solve." Then she left. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up. The building no longer impressed her. It no longer intimidated her. It simply stood there, unchanged. Outside, the city moved on. Aaliyah breathed deeply and placed her hand on her stomach. Fear still lived there. So did resolve. She chose dignity over convenience, truth over comfort. Some people believe pride ruins things. Others learn pride protects what matters most. Now pause and reflect. Do you believe pride protects, or do you believe it destroys? If this chapter spoke to you, support the story. Like this video. Share it with someone who values dignity. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Subscribe to Love Tales with Mr. Easton for stories that honor truth, choice, and quiet strength. Noah arrived on a quiet morning. No chaos, no rush of voices, just steady hands and measured breaths. The room held a calm Aaliyah did not expect but welcomed. She focused on rhythm, on listening to her body, on the certainty that whatever fear had followed her for months would end here. When she heard his cry, something inside her settled. They placed him against her chest, small and warm, his fingers curling instinctively as if he already knew how to hold on. His eyes stayed closed at first. His breathing found its pace. Aaliyah felt tears rise without warning, not from pain, but from relief. She had carried doubt. She had carried questions. In that moment, none of them mattered. He existed. She studied his face slowly. The curve of his nose, the softness of his cheeks, the quiet strength in his tiny hands. She memorized him without trying. Her body recognized him before her mind caught up. Noah. She spoke his name aloud and felt it anchor her. There was no one else in the room when the nurse stepped out. No family crowding the space. No partner pacing. Just mother and son learning each other's presence. Aaliyah did not feel alone. She felt responsible in the truest sense of the word. As the hours passed, she noticed how quickly instinct took over. She adjusted her hold. She responded to his sounds. She trusted herself without needing instruction. Years of caring for others had prepared her for this without her knowing it. When night settled, she watched him sleep. She did not think about what she lacked. She thought about what she had chosen: honesty, autonomy, love without conditions. She promised him quietly that he would never be treated as a burden. He would never feel like a complication. He would never be reduced to a problem someone wished away. She did not know how the years would unfold. She did not need to. In that moment, one truth stood firm. He was wanted. Aaliyah made a choice early, and she protected it every day after. She would not raise her son inside anger. That choice did not mean pretending pain never existed. It meant refusing to let pain shape how love showed up. She allowed herself quiet moments to feel what had happened. She allowed grief to pass through without taking root. Then she returned to the work of living. She did not speak poorly of Ryan. Not to friends, not to coworkers, not to strangers who asked questions they did not deserve answers to. When curiosity pressed, she kept her words clean and simple. She said Noah's father was someone who did not know how to stay. That sentence held truth without poison. She understood how easily bitterness could become a companion. She had seen it harden people. She had watched it turn memory into weapon. She refused to hand that inheritance to her child. Dignity guided her choices. She took on extra work without complaint. She adjusted her schedule. She moved to a smaller place when needed. She accepted help when it arrived without shame. She built a life that matched her means, not her resentment. At night, when Noah slept beside her crib, she allowed herself honesty. Some days felt heavy. Some nights stretched long. But she never wished him into a different life. She believed children absorbed emotion long before they understood words. She believed tone mattered. Presence mattered. Calm mattered. So she modeled it. When exhaustion came, she rested when she could. When frustration rose, she breathed before speaking. When sadness lingered, she allowed it space without letting it lead. Friends admired her strength. She never called it that. Strength implied effort. This felt like intention. She did not erase the past. She placed it where it could not harm the future. Dignity, she learned, is not silence. It is restraint guided by love. As Noah grew, he sensed that steadiness. He lived in a home where emotions existed without chaos, where questions were allowed, where mistakes did not threaten belonging. Aaliyah chose dignity because she wanted her son to learn one lesson early. Love does not need anger to be honest. Years moved forward without announcement. They did not arrive as milestones. They arrived as mornings stacked together, as lunches packed and unpacked, as growth measured on door frames and in shoes outgrown too quickly. Aaliyah learned how to shape time around Noah. Her days adjusted. Early mornings became routine. Nights shortened. Weekends filled with errands that included him rather than paused for him. Life did not stop. It adapted. She returned to teaching with Noah bundled close during his earliest months. The community center became a second home. Colleagues stepped in when needed. Children waved when she arrived. Noah grew used to being held by many arms, always returned to hers. Money required care. She tracked expenses closely. She accepted freelance work late at night when the apartment stayed quiet. She learned which sacrifices mattered and which did not. She did not chase expansion. She chased balance. Noah learned rhythm early. Breakfast at the same table. Walks after school. Stories before sleep. He found comfort in repetition. Stability formed without explanation. Time softened the sharp edges of memory. Aaliyah did not forget what happened with Ryan. She simply stopped carrying it as weight. The past became context rather than burden. It informed her choices without directing them. As Noah grew, he filled the apartment with sound. Laughter replaced quiet. Questions replaced silence. Aaliyah watched him discover the world with a seriousness that surprised her. He studied things closely. He listened before speaking. He noticed patterns adults often missed. She noticed that too. Years taught her something unexpected. She had not lost anything by choosing truth. She had gained clarity. Her life felt smaller in scale perhaps, but fuller in meaning. Each day served a purpose she could name. She did not feel behind. She felt present. When people asked how she managed alone, she corrected them gently. She was not alone. She was accompanied. Motherhood had not emptied her. It had focused her. Years passed not as endurance, but as quiet building. And with each year, Noah grew not just older, but steadier. Noah showed who he was early. He moved through spaces with care. He watched before acting. He asked questions that surprised adults and stayed with children. His gentleness did not come from fear. It came from attention. At the community center, he sat near Aaliyah's class tables with crayons spread neatly in front of him. He did not rush color onto paper. He tested shades. He layered lines. He paused often, studying what he had made as if it spoke back. Art came naturally to him, not as talent meant to impress, but as language. When words failed, he drew. When feelings felt too large, he shaped them into images. Doors appeared often, windows, roads bending toward open spaces. Aaliyah noticed the patterns and said nothing. She let expression lead. He treated others with the same care he gave his drawings. When another child cried, Noah sat close without touching until invited. When someone felt left out, he noticed and made room. He did not demand attention. He offered presence. Teachers described him as thoughtful. Aaliyah called him observant. He asked questions that revealed depth rather than curiosity alone. Why do people hurry? Why do some adults stop listening? Why does kindness feel different from being nice? She answered honestly when she could. When she could not, she admitted it. He accepted uncertainty without distress. At home, routines mattered. He helped set the table. He chose books from shelves he knew well. He preferred stories where characters learned rather than won. He asked for explanations when endings felt incomplete. Aaliyah watched him grow with quiet pride. She saw how her choices shaped him, how calm bred calm, how respect taught respect, how truth allowed safety. She saw how children absorbed tone long before meaning. Noah never asked for excess. He asked for understanding. He carried gentleness without weakness, curiosity without intrusion, creativity without demand. He felt secure enough to be kind. Aaliyah understood then that love handled with care teaches children how to handle the world. Noah did not grow hardened by absence. He grew grounded by honesty. Noah asked about his father the first time on an ordinary afternoon. They were walking home from the community center. He held a sketchbook under his arm, pages filled with half-finished drawings. He did not stop walking when he asked. He did not look up right away. Why don't I have a dad at home? Aaliyah slowed her steps, then matched his pace again. She did not rush her answer. She had prepared for this moment without scripting it. She knelt beside him on the sidewalk. You have a father, she said. He's someone who didn't know how to stay. Noah considered that quietly. Did he leave because of me? No, she answered at once. Her voice stayed steady. This had nothing to do with you. Adults make choices before children arrive. Those choices belong to them. He nodded, absorbing the words carefully, as if fitting them into a place he had already made. Is he a bad person? Aaliyah shook her head. No. He's a person who was afraid. That answer felt honest without carrying blame. Over the years, the questions continued, changing shape as Noah grew. Sometimes he asked about looks, sometimes about habits, sometimes about whether his father liked art or quiet places. Aaliyah answered what she knew. She never filled gaps with bitterness. She never created stories to soften reality. When she did not know something, she said so. He has your eyes, she told Noah once. And your way of thinking. Noah accepted that connection without distress. She made one thing clear from the beginning. Your father is part of your story, she said. He's not the whole story. Noah never felt like a secret. He never felt unwanted. He never felt like a mistake someone tried to erase. He knew his origin without shame. That knowledge shaped him. He did not carry anger. He did not carry confusion. He carried understanding. He learned that people can matter without being present. He learned that absence does not equal rejection. Aaliyah believed truth, spoken with care, protects children better than silence ever could. Noah grew knowing he was loved fully, not partially. He understood that love can exist even when people fail to show up. Children inherit how love is handled. Noah inherited honesty. The changes came quietly. Noah tired faster after school. He asked to sit down during walks he once finished easily. His laughter shortened, not gone, only softer, as if energy now needed careful saving. Aaliyah noticed before anyone else did. Mothers always do. At first, she told herself it was growth. Children stretched fast. Bodies adjusted. Seasons shifted. She watched him closely without alarming him, marking patterns in her mind the way she once tracked bills and schedules. Then came the bruises. Small, at first, blue shadows on his arms and legs that did not match his play. She asked gently where they came from. Noah shrugged, unconcerned. I don't know, he said, already focused on his sketchbook. He began falling asleep earlier. Not the deep, peaceful sleep of a tired child, but something heavier. He woke slower. His appetite changed. Foods he loved stayed untouched on the plate. Aaliyah scheduled an appointment. The doctor spoke calmly, asked questions, ran basic tests, offered reassurance without certainty. Aaliyah nodded, thanked him, and took Noah home with a bag of stickers and instructions to rest. Rest did not fix anything. Days passed. Noah's skin grew paler. His eyes stayed bright, but his body lagged behind them. He still asked questions, still drew, still smiled, but something underneath worked against him. Aaliyah returned to the clinic. Then again. Each visit peeled back another layer of comfort. More tests, more waiting, more words that avoided answers. She learned how long minutes feel inside exam rooms, how silence stretches when hope needs space to breathe. She kept her voice steady for Noah. You're doing great, she told him. They just want to be sure. He believed her. At night, when he slept, Aaliyah sat beside his bed and counted his breaths. She told herself she was being careful, not afraid. She reviewed memories, searching for signs she might have missed. She had carried responsibility her whole life. Now it pressed heavier. The first time fear spoke clearly, she did not answer it. She folded it away, choosing vigilance instead. She believed attention could protect him. She believed action could outrun uncertainty. She did not yet know how fragile certainty truly was. Hospitals became familiar faster than Aaliyah expected. The first long visit ended with instructions and return dates. The second came with more forms. By the third, she learned where to park without thinking. She learned which elevators ran slower. She learned how to keep Noah occupied while waiting for names to be called. Routines formed around sterility. Check in. Sit down. Answer the same questions. Confirm the same details. Wait. Noah adapted quietly. He carried his sketchbook everywhere. Drew, while nurses moved around him. Asked questions about machines without fear. He noticed patterns in beeping sounds and tried to recreate them in lines and shapes. Aaliyah watched him closely. She learned how to read charts without understanding them fully. She learned which nurses spoke with honesty and which spoke with distance. She learned that kindness showed up in small gestures, a warm blanket, a juice box placed within reach, a pause before delivering information. Days blurred together. She kept track of time through appointments rather than calendars. Mornings began early. Afternoons stretched long. Evenings ended with careful instructions she repeated silently so she would not forget. Hospital air dried her throat. Chairs pressed into her back. Sleep arrived in short bursts when Noah rested. She learned how to function on alertness rather than rest. At home, the apartment shifted. Medication schedules hung on the refrigerator. Notes lined the counter. Noah's bed moved closer to hers. Nightlights stayed on. Silence carried weight. Aaliyah stayed calm for Noah. She smiled when he asked questions. She answered simply. She never let fear reach her voice. When doctors spoke, she listened carefully and asked what mattered. When they avoided certainty, she nodded and waited. Hospitals taught her patience without comfort. She saw other families. Some cried openly. Some stared ahead without expression. She did not judge. She recognized herself in all of them. This place did not allow illusion. Each visit chipped away at normalcy. Each test moved them closer to words she feared hearing. Still, she showed up every time with steady hands and a composed face. She believed routine could hold chaos at bay. She did not yet know how thin that line was. Exhaustion did not arrive all at once. It settled in layers. Aaliyah felt it first in her body. Her shoulders ached when she stood too long. Her legs felt heavy climbing stairs she once took without thought. Sleep no longer refreshed her. It paused her. She stopped noticing hunger. Meals became tasks rather than needs. Coffee replaced rest. Lists replaced memory. She learned how to function while depleted because stopping felt dangerous. She stayed alert for Noah. Every cough pulled her attention. Every pause in his movement drew her eyes. She watched him constantly, measuring energy, reading small changes, adjusting plans without speaking them aloud. At the hospital, she stayed composed. At home, she folded inward. She woke at night to check his breathing. She lay still afterward, waiting for her heart to slow. Some nights, it never did. Morning came anyway. Friends offered help. She accepted rides and meals when she could. She thanked them with genuine warmth, then returned to managing everything herself. Responsibility had trained her to rely on her own hands. Her work shifted quietly. She reduced hours without explanation, took assignments she could finish late at night. She stopped creating for joy. Art became functional, necessary. The children at the center noticed the change in her pace, not her care. Aaliyah kept her voice steady for them too. Exhaustion blurred time. Days folded into each other. She forgot what week it was. She marked progress by appointment dates and medication refills. She learned how to nap sitting up, how to think clearly while tired, how to prioritize without debate. She did not complain. Complaints felt indulgent. Energy belonged to Noah. Everything else waited. There were moments when fear pressed close, when her hands shook alone in the bathroom, when she leaned against the wall and counted breaths until the room steadied. She did not allow those moments to linger. She returned to the work of caring. Aaliyah had carried responsibility since childhood. This weight felt familiar and unbearable at the same time. She did not question whether she could continue. She simply did. Love does not remove exhaustion. It gives it purpose. Noah sensed the shift long before words confirmed it. He noticed how often adults spoke in lowered voices. He noticed how appointments replaced playdates. He noticed how his mother's smile worked harder than before. He did not ask what the change meant. He adjusted to it. Quiet bravery took shape in small choices. He stopped running ahead on sidewalks and stayed close to Aaliyah's side. He carried his own bag at the hospital, even when it weighed too much for his frame. He thanked nurses without prompting. He listened carefully when doctors explained things meant for adults. When needles appeared, he looked away without complaint. When tests lasted longer than promised, he waited without protest. He learned how to hold still for others, how to cooperate without fear. Aaliyah watched him and felt both pride and heartbreak. At night, Noah asked questions in a calm voice. Will this make me miss school? Can I still draw here? Do I need to be quiet for the other kids? She answered honestly, choosing clarity over comfort. He accepted each answer with a nod, as if storing information rather than emotion. He never asked if he would be okay. That question stayed unspoken. Instead, he focused on what remained familiar. His sketchbook stayed open. His pencils stayed lined up. He drew hospital rooms with windows bigger than they were. He drew people holding hands without showing faces. He drew paths that curved but did not end. When he felt weak, he rested without frustration. When pain appeared, he described it simply, without drama. He trusted the adults around him to handle what he could not. One afternoon, after a long appointment, he reached for Aaliyah's hand. I know you're tired, he said. She froze for half a second, then squeezed his fingers. I'm okay, she replied. He nodded, satisfied. Me too. That exchange broke something open in her chest. Noah did not perform courage. He practiced it. He met each day without demanding reassurance. He accepted help without shame. He offered kindness when he had little to spare. His bravery did not come from understanding the situation. It came from trust. He trusted his mother's steadiness. He trusted honesty. He trusted that fear did not need to lead. This was the lowest point in their lives so far. And still, love showed up quietly. Noah asked the question on a night that felt ordinary. Dinner dishes sat drying by the sink. A cartoon played softly on low volume. Aaliyah folded laundry at the small table, moving slowly, carefully, conserving energy. Noah sat on the floor with his sketchbook open, drawing without urgency. He did not look up when he spoke. Can I meet my dad? The words landed without warning, yet they felt inevitable. Aaliyah's hands stopped moving. She did not turn right away. She did not answer quickly. She let the silence settle so her reaction would not speak before her thoughts did. Noah kept drawing. He had practiced this question in his own way. She could tell by how steady his voice stayed. This was not curiosity sparked by a story at school. This was not comparison after seeing other families. This came from somewhere deeper. She sat down across from him. What made you think about that? She asked gently. Noah shrugged. I think about him sometimes anyway. But now I want to see him. Aaliyah searched his face for fear. She found none. Only resolve. Why now? She asked. He finally looked up. Because I don't want to be mad, he said. And I don't want to make things up, in my head. The honesty in his answer tightened her chest. He explained in pieces, not all at once. How some kids at the hospital talked about their parents. How one boy said he wished he had asked questions earlier. How Noah didn't want his thoughts about his father to stay blank forever. I don't need him to stay, he added quickly. I just want to see him. Aaliyah listened, heart steady but heavy. This was not a child asking for rescue. This was a child asking for truth. She realized then that Noah had grown past the age of accepting answers without understanding. He did not want comfort. He wanted clarity. She reached for his hand. That's a big thing to ask, she said. I know, he replied. But I can handle it. She believed him. That belief frightened her more than the question itself. Aaliyah did not answer him that night. Not because she dismissed the question, but because it deserved care. She tucked Noah into bed as she always did, read the same story, smoothed his hair, kissed his forehead. She waited until his breathing deepened before allowing her own thoughts to surface. Resistance rose quietly. It did not sound like fear at first. It sounded like protection. She thought of hospital corridors and long nights. She thought of how carefully Noah's world had been held together through honesty and routine. She thought of the stability she had built, piece by piece. She worried about disruption. Ryan existed as an idea Noah understood without pain. Turning that idea into a person carried risk. Expectations could form. Disappointment could follow. Aaliyah had learned what absence could do when it arrived suddenly. She paced the apartment, keeping her steps light. She told herself she had a duty to shield her son, to preserve the peace he relied on, to keep his emotional ground steady when his body already fought enough battles. Resistance shaped itself into questions. What if Ryan said no? What if he agreed and left again? What if Noah read more into one meeting than it could give? She remembered the office, the check, the careful distance. She remembered how cleanly Ryan had closed that chapter. She feared reopening it would cut Noah deeper than silence ever had. Morning came with exhaustion. Noah did not bring the question up again right away. He ate slowly, drew quietly, watched her with awareness that felt older than his years. She realized he was waiting, not pushing. That patience broke her heart. At the hospital later that day, she watched Noah sit through another appointment with calm acceptance. She watched him thank the nurse. She watched him carry his sketchbook with care. This was not a child seeking fantasy. This was a child seeking completion. Aaliyah felt resistance weaken, not because fear faded, but because love clarified what mattered. She realized she was resisting for herself as much as for him. Protecting him also protected her from reopening a wound she had sealed carefully. She sat beside him in the waiting area and took his hand. "I need time," she said softly. "That's okay," Noah replied. "I can wait." His trust pressed against her chest. Resistance held, but it began to shift. Honesty arrived before readiness. Aaliyah understood that truth does not wait for comfort. It waits for courage. That night, after Noah fell asleep, she sat alone at the small table by the window. The city hummed softly outside. Lights moved. Lives continued. She placed both hands flat on the surface and let memory return without resistance. She remembered the office, the distance in Ryan's voice, the way protection had been offered as removal. She remembered choosing dignity without looking back. She had built a life that did not require his presence. But Noah's request was not about repair. It was about identity. She realized something she had avoided naming. Shielding Noah from disappointment could also shield him from truth. Silence could become its own distortion. Love, if it meant anything real, had to trust his strength the way she had trusted it in every hospital room. The next morning, she sat beside him on the couch. "I've been thinking about what you asked," she said. Noah closed his sketchbook and turned fully toward her. "I didn't tell you everything before," she continued. "Not because you couldn't handle it, because I thought I was protecting you." He listened without interrupting. "Your father and I cared about each other," she said. "When I told him about you, he wasn't ready. He thought leaving was the safest choice." Noah absorbed the words carefully. "So he didn't leave because of me," he said. "No," Aaliyah replied. "He left because of fear." Noah nodded. The answer fit something he had already felt. She told him there were no guarantees, that meeting his father might bring answers or more questions, that it could feel good or complicated, or both. She did not soften reality. She did not sharpen it either. "What do you want now?" she asked. Noah thought for a long moment. "I still want to meet him," he said. "Even if it's hard. I don't want to wonder anymore." Aaliyah felt tears rise and did not hide them. "Then I will help you," she said. "And I will be with you the whole time." Noah leaned into her side and rested his head against her arm. Love forced honesty not because it demanded pain, but because it trusted truth to hold them both. In that moment, Aaliyah understood something fully. Protecting a child does not mean deciding their truth for them. It means walking beside them when they face it. The question had been asked. The answer had been chosen. Ryan agreed to the meeting without delay. No questions, no conditions, just a location suggested by Aaliyah, neutral and quiet, close to the hospital but not inside it. A place with windows and space to sit, a place where Noah could leave whenever he wanted. Ryan arrived early. He stood near the window, hands loosely folded, eyes fixed on the street below. He had reviewed numbers all morning without absorbing them. His calendar stayed open, untouched. For the first time in years, control did not steady him. The door opened. Aaliyah stepped in first, calm, composed, protective without tension. She scanned the room once, then nodded toward him. Ryan returned the nod, unsure what it meant. Then Noah entered. Ryan felt it before he understood it. The air left his chest. His vision narrowed. His body reacted without instruction. A sharp heat pressed behind his eyes, followed by a sudden weakness in his knees. He reached for the back of a chair, not to sit, but to remain standing. Noah stopped a few steps inside the room. He was smaller than Ryan imagined, thinner, paler than he should have been. Yet his posture stayed straight. His gaze stayed level. He held a sketchbook against his chest with both hands. Ryan saw his own reflection in the child's eyes, not resemblance as an idea, as fact. The same shape, the same focus, the same quiet assessment he had practiced his entire life. Time slowed. Ryan did not step forward. He did not speak. He stood frozen, the distance between them heavy with years he could not recover. Noah looked at him without fear. "You're Ryan," he said. Hearing his name in the child's voice cracked something open. "Yes," Ryan managed. His voice did not sound like his own. "I am." Aaliyah watched closely, ready to intervene. She saw Ryan's restraint falter. She saw his breath catch. She saw the control he had worn for decades begin to fail him. This was not a reunion built on preparation. This was recognition in its rawest form. Ryan realized in that instant that nothing he had built mattered more than the child standing in front of him. And that realization terrified him. Ryan's body betrayed him before his mind caught up. His grip tightened on the chair until his knuckles lightened. His shoulders tensed, then dropped, as if something heavy had finally slipped loose. He tried to inhale and felt the breath stall halfway in. The room did not move, yet he felt unsteady. He had faced boardrooms without pause. He had handled crises with measured calm. None of that training helped him now. Noah shifted his weight and glanced at Aaliyah, then back to Ryan. The child's calm only deepened the contrast. Ryan realized he was the one struggling to stand. "Do you want to sit?" Aaliyah asked quietly. He nodded once and lowered himself into the chair. The movement felt careful, deliberate, as if sudden motion might break something fragile inside him. He rested his hands on his knees and forced his breathing to slow. Across from him, Noah took a seat too. He placed the sketchbook on the table and folded his hands on top of it. He watched Ryan with curiosity, not judgment. Ryan felt heat gather behind his eyes. He blinked and looked away for a moment, fixing his gaze on the window. The city beyond the glass continued as usual. Cars passed. People crossed streets. Life showed no sign of noticing what was happening inside this room. He turned back to Noah. Up close, the resemblance grew undeniable. The angle of the jaw, the way Noah studied faces before speaking, the quiet patience in his posture. These were not learned traits. They were inherited. Ryan swallowed hard. "I'm glad you came," he said. Noah nodded. "Me too." 2 simple sentences, enough to undo him. Ryan felt a tightness spread through his chest. Not pain, but pressure. Years of separation pressed forward at once. Missed birthdays, missed questions, missed chances to learn the sound of this child's laugh in real time. He had believed distance kept damage contained. Now he understood distance had only delayed it. His body reacted with honesty he could not control. His eyes burned. His jaw clenched. He pressed his lips together and breathed through the surge, refusing to look away again. Aaliyah watched him carefully. She saw the shift. She saw the armor fail. She did not intervene. This moment belonged to him. Ryan realized something then. Control had always lived in his mind. Love had arrived in his body first. Recognition settled slowly, then all at once. Ryan studied Noah's face with care, as if looking too closely might overwhelm them both. He noticed how the boy listened before speaking, how his eyes followed movement in the room, attentive and calm, how his fingers rested lightly on the sketchbook, protective but relaxed. These were not coincidences. Ryan recognized habits he had never taught. Noah tilted his head slightly when thinking. Ryan did the same. Noah chose words carefully, pausing before answering. Ryan had built a career on that exact restraint. The weight of it pressed in. "You draw," Ryan said, not as a question. Noah nodded and slid the sketchbook forward. He opened it to a page filled with lines and shapes that suggested paths crossing, stopping, then continuing again. "I draw when things feel big," Noah explained. Ryan felt something shift behind his ribs. "So do I," he said quietly, surprised by his own honesty. Just in different ways. Noah considered that, then smiled. Small, real, unforced. Aaliyah watched the exchange with a guarded calm. She stayed alert, ready to protect Noah if the moment tipped the wrong way. Instead, she saw recognition form without demand. Ryan realized he was not meeting a stranger. He was meeting consequence. Every choice he had made stood embodied in the child across from him, not as accusation, as presence. The clarity of it stunned him. He felt pride without ownership, wonder without entitlement, connection without claim. "Do you like quiet places?" Noah asked. Ryan let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "Yes, very much." Noah nodded, satisfied. "Me too." That shared preference felt larger than it should have. It bridged years of absence in a single exchange. Ryan looked at Aaliyah then. She met his eyes without challenge or warmth, only steadiness. He saw how much of Noah came from her. The patience, the grounding, the honesty. Recognition expanded beyond resemblance. This child carried the best parts of both of them, and Ryan understood something with sharp clarity. Recognition was not comfort. It was responsibility finally arriving. Guilt did not arrive as shame. It arrived as clarity. Ryan had always believed he could manage consequences by staying ahead of them. He believed distance reduced harm. He believed silence prevented damage. Sitting across from Noah, those beliefs collapsed without noise. Guilt moved through him with precision. It showed him every absence without accusation, every milestone he never witnessed, every night Aaliyah carried alone, every question Noah learned to ask without him. Control offered no defense. Ryan felt it in his chest first, a heaviness that pressed inward, steady and unrelenting. He had no words for it, and none were required. The truth stood in front of him, breathing, watching, trusting. "I should have been here," he said. The sentence fell without preparation. It was not an apology shaped to land well. It was an admission he had avoided for years. Aaliyah's posture did not change. She neither agreed nor corrected him. She let the truth exist without adding weight. Noah looked at Ryan closely. "Why weren't you?" he asked. The question carried no accusation, only curiosity. Ryan felt the urge to explain himself in familiar terms, to speak of timing and complexity and protection. He stopped himself. Those words had served him once. They would not serve Noah. "I was afraid," he said, "and I thought leaving would make things easier." Noah nodded slowly, absorbing the answer. "That didn't work," he said. Ryan almost smiled. "Almost. No," he agreed. "It didn't." Guilt sharpened then, not as punishment, but as responsibility. Ryan understood that regret without action meant nothing. He understood that feeling bad did not repair absence. He understood that this moment demanded more than emotion. He leaned forward slightly. "I can't change what I missed," he said. "But I want to be honest now." Aaliyah felt the shift. This was not the man who once framed withdrawal as care. This was someone confronting the cost of his choices without negotiation. Guilt did not ask for forgiveness. It demanded accountability, and for the first time, Ryan did not resist it. Ryan had spent his life solving problems with authority. Influence opened doors. Resources shifted outcomes. Access shortened paths. He knew how to move systems when he decided something mattered. Sitting across from Noah, that instinct returned, sharp and urgent, but changed in purpose. He did not reach for control. He reached for care. "I want to help," he said, choosing each word slowly. "In ways that respect what you already have." Aaliyah watched him closely. She waited for familiar patterns. The offers framed as solutions. The distance disguised as structure. They did not come. Ryan asked questions instead. "What does he need right now? What makes his days easier? What do you want me to understand before I act?" The shift surprised her. He listened as she spoke about hospital schedules, about routines that kept Noah steady, about the importance of predictability. He did not interrupt. He did not redirect. He took notes on his phone, not to document, but to remember. "I have access to specialists," he said carefully. "If you want introductions, I can arrange them. If not, I won't." He looked at Noah when he spoke. And if you want to meet people who help kids feel less afraid in those places, I can help there too. Noah considered this. Can they help me draw there? He asked. Ryan smiled then, real and unguarded. Yes. I think they can. For the first time, power took a different shape. Not a lever. A bridge. Ryan did not promise miracles. He did not speak in absolutes. He did not position himself as savior. He offered presence, resources, and choice, placing all three in Aaliyah's hands. I'll show up when you say, he added. And I'll step back when you ask. Aaliyah felt something loosen inside her. This was not repair through dominance. This was accountability learning humility. Noah watched the exchange with quiet interest. He did not smile widely. He did not celebrate. He nodded once, as if accepting a tool rather than a gift. That sounds okay, he said. Ryan exhaled, relief passing through him like warmth. He realized then that power used without listening had always failed him. Power guided by love demanded patience, restraint, and trust. For the first time, he understood how to use what he had without taking what did not belong to him. This reunion did not fix the past. It opened a door. And for Ryan, opening doors gently became the work that mattered most. Ryan moved quickly, but not loudly. He made calls without ceremony. Names passed through his phone that rarely reached the public. Specialists, department heads, people used to responding when he spoke. Appointments shifted, calendars bent, doors opened. Access worked the way it always had. Doctors reviewed files within hours. Opinions arrived faster than Aaliyah expected. Tests were repeated. New scans scheduled. A private room appeared without explanation. The efficiency felt unreal, like time itself had been shortened. Aaliyah watched carefully. She appreciated the help without surrendering control. She asked questions. She requested explanations. She insisted on clarity rather than urgency. Ryan respected that. He stood back when she stepped forward. Noah noticed the change too. More adults entered his room, more faces, more quiet conversations held just outside the door. He stayed calm, sketchbook open, listening without fear. He asked which doctors liked drawings. He asked which ones talked too fast. Ryan stayed nearby, not hovering, not absent. Present in a way that felt intentional rather than performative. The doctor spoke with precision. Options laid out cleanly. Probabilities discussed carefully. Plans adjusted. Words like progress and monitoring appeared often enough to keep hope alive. Still, certainty stayed out of reach. Ryan listened closely, absorbing each detail. He asked informed questions. He took notes. He followed up. This was familiar ground for him. Systems, expertise, strategy. Yet something felt different. For all the access he provided, the core truth remained unchanged. No amount of influence could promise outcomes. No network could guarantee healing. Medicine moved carefully, respectfully aware of its limits. Aaliyah felt that boundary sharply. She had not expected money to solve everything. Still, seeing its reach stop short stirred something heavy. She watched Ryan process the same realization, his posture stiffening slightly when words failed to offer assurance. Noah looked between them. So they're helping, he said, more statement than question. Yes, Aaliyah replied. They're helping. Ryan nodded. And we'll keep listening. For the first time, power had reached its edge. And at that edge, something quieter took its place. Hope changed shape as days passed. It no longer arrived as expectation. It arrived as permission to breathe. A good morning. A stable afternoon. A night without alarms. Each small win mattered more than promises ever could. Aaliyah learned to measure progress differently. She stopped asking when things would be over. She asked how Noah felt today. She asked what helped him rest. She asked which routines made the hours easier. Hope became practical, not abstract. Helplessness lived beside it. She felt it in waiting rooms where conversations ended without conclusions. She felt it when doctors spoke carefully, choosing words that respected reality. She felt it when plans adjusted without resolution. Ryan felt it too. He sat with charts open, eyes moving across numbers that refused to add up to certainty. He had spent years trusting preparation to control outcomes. Now preparation led only to possibility. That unsettled him. He watched Aaliyah manage the weight with steady grace. She did not deny fear. She placed it where it could not lead. Ryan admired that discipline more than any authority he had known. Noah sensed the balance. "Are we still okay today?" he asked one morning. "Yes," Aaliyah answered. "We are." That answer held both truth and restraint. Helplessness did not mean inactivity. It meant accepting that effort did not always produce results. Ryan struggled with that acceptance at first. He wanted to do more, push further, find something untouched. Aaliyah reminded him quietly, "Being here matters too." He listened. Ryan stayed when conversations grew quiet. He stayed when updates felt incomplete. He stayed when nothing needed fixing, only presence. Hope grew thinner, but stronger. It learned how to stand without guarantees. It learned how to share space with uncertainty. It learned how to wait without collapsing. Aaliyah realized something important. Hope without helplessness feels shallow. Helplessness without hope feels unbearable. Together, they taught patience. And patience taught love how to remain steady when answers did not arrive. Ryan learned presence the hard way. It did not come from instruction or habit. It came from staying when there was nothing left to manage, from sitting in the quiet after doctors left, from listening without preparing a response. At first he filled space with questions, follow-ups, next steps. His mind searched for angles, for leverage, for anything he could move. Aaliyah let him work through it without correction. Then one evening, Noah fell asleep mid-sentence, his head leaning against Aaliyah's arm. The room dimmed. Machines hummed softly. Nothing required action. Ryan sat down and stayed silent. Minutes passed. Then more. He noticed things he had missed before. How Aaliyah adjusted Noah's blanket without waking him. How she timed her breathing to his. How she watched his face, not the monitors. Ryan realized how rarely he had watched anyone without agenda. Listening changed him. He stopped interrupting. He stopped steering conversations towards solutions. When Aaliyah spoke about her fears, he did not reassure. He asked what she needed. When Noah talked about his drawings, Ryan asked what each line meant instead of praising the result. Presence sharpened his attention. He learned Noah's rhythms. When energy peaked, when rest came easier, which stories calmed him, which questions needed space. He learned when to speak and when to sit still. One afternoon, Noah looked at him and said, "You listen better now." Ryan felt the truth of that land deep. "I'm learning," he replied. Presence demanded humility. It asked him to accept that love did not always look like action. Sometimes it looked like restraint. Sometimes it looked like patience. Sometimes it looked like staying even when staying hurt. Aaliyah noticed the change. She saw how Ryan waited for her lead, how he checked in before making plans, how he apologized when he overstepped. These were small things. They mattered. Ryan understood then what wealth had never taught him. Time is not measured by control. Care is not proven by force. Love shows itself in attention. He stayed because he chose to. Not because guilt pushed him. Not because outcomes demanded it. Because listening had taught him what mattered. In that stillness, Ryan found something he had not known he lacked. Connection that did not need purchase. And that, he learned, was the one thing money could never provide. Nothing reset between Aaliyah and Ryan. There was no reunion glow, no relief that softened the past, no rush toward comfort. What stood between them now was real, and it stayed that way. Aaliyah did not forgive him simply because he showed up. She noticed the effort. She acknowledged the change. She respected the way he stayed present without demanding space in her heart. Still, forgiveness did not arrive on schedule. She did not owe him speed. Their conversations stayed careful, honest but measured. They spoke about Noah first, always Noah. Schedules, energy levels, what helped, what tired him, what felt safe. When they spoke about the past, it happened without drama. Ryan did not defend himself. He did not reframe decisions. He named them as they were. He accepted responsibility without adding conditions. Aaliyah listened without softening the truth. That balance mattered. She did not punish him with silence. She did not reward him with closeness. She held the line between respect and distance, and stayed there. Ryan felt that boundary clearly. It frustrated him at times, not because he felt entitled, but because he wanted resolution. He had spent his life closing chapters. This one refused to close. Aaliyah noticed his discomfort and did not rush to ease it. "You don't need to fix how I feel," she told him once. "You need to respect it." He nodded and adjusted. Forgiveness, she understood, was not a gift to be handed over. It was a process shaped by consistency. Apologies mattered less than patterns. Presence mattered more than explanation. Ryan accepted that. He stopped asking where things stood. He focused on where they were. He learned to sit inside uncertainty without pushing it toward outcome. Aaliyah watched him carefully. She watched how he treated Noah when no one else was watching. She watched how he responded when plans changed. She watched how he handled limits without resentment. She did not test him. Life did that on its own. Love without promises demanded patience. It demanded restraint. It demanded respect for wounds that had not healed simply because time had passed. Aaliyah did not close her heart. She protected it. Trust returned in increments so small they were easy to miss. It showed up in consistency. In Ryan arriving when he said he would. In him leaving when asked without complaint. In the way he remembered details without writing them down. Noah's favorite juice. The time of day fatigue set in. Which stories calmed him fastest? Aaliyah noticed everything. She did not praise effort. She measured reliability. Ryan learned that trust did not grow through intensity. It grew through repetition. The same actions, done the same way, without expectation of reward. He adapted. He checked before making plans. He asked before stepping in. He waited for cues rather than creating momentum. When he made mistakes, he named them quickly and corrected course without defense. Aaliyah allowed space for that learning. She did not reopen old arguments. She did not test him with traps. She watched patterns form over time. She allowed her nervous system to register safety before her emotions followed. Noah watched even more closely. Children noticed shifts adults missed. He tracked tone, timing, body language. He observed how Ryan listened to Aaliyah before speaking, how he deferred without disappearing, how he stayed engaged without trying to lead. One afternoon, while drawing at the table, Noah looked up and said, "You don't talk like you used to." Ryan paused. "Is that good or bad?" Noah thought. "Better." "You wait now." That comment stayed with Ryan longer than any praise. Trust grew in shared quiet. In evenings where no one filled space with plans. In moments where fear surfaced and no one rushed to smooth it away. In laughter that arrived without force. Aaliyah felt the shift internally before she acknowledged it outwardly. Her body relaxed first. Her shoulders dropped. Her breath steadied when Ryan entered the room. She stopped bracing without realizing she had been. She did not call it forgiveness. She called it evidence. Trust rebuilt slowly because it had been broken deeply. It respected the pace set by reality, not hope. And through it all, Noah learned something without being taught. Trust is not promised. It is proven. Noah asked the question when no one expected it. They were sitting together in the hospital room during a quiet stretch. Afternoon light rested softly against the wall. Ryan sat near the window, reading aloud from a book Noah had chosen. Aaliyah organized papers at the small table, half listening, half resting. Noah closed the book on his lap. "Are you going to leave again?" The room stilled. Ryan did not answer right away. He felt the weight of the question move through him, steady and exact. This was not fear dressed as curiosity. This was clarity asking for truth. Aaliyah looked up but did not step in. This moment belonged to them. Ryan shifted his chair closer, keeping his voice calm. "I don't want to," he said. "And I'm choosing not to." Noah studied his face. "You said things before too." Ryan nodded. "I did. And I didn't stay." "You're right." The honesty surprised even him. "I can't promise the future," Ryan continued. "I can promise what I'm doing now. I'm here today. I'll be here tomorrow. And if something ever changes, I'll tell you. I won't disappear." Noah considered this carefully. "So, you're not saying never," he said. "I'm saying I won't lie," Ryan replied. That answer mattered. Noah leaned back against the pillow, satisfied but thoughtful. Okay, he said. That makes sense. Aaliyah felt something shift inside her chest. Not relief. Respect. Ryan had not reached for certainty to soothe fear. He had reached for honesty to honor it. He did not ask for trust. He explained his choices and allowed trust to decide on its own. Noah returned to his book, the questions settled for now. Ryan stayed where he was, aware that presence was not proven through reassurance, but through consistency. He understood that children did not need guarantees. They needed truth delivered without evasion. Aaliyah met his eyes across the room. She did not smile. She nodded once. Love without promises demanded courage. It asked adults to stand inside uncertainty without dressing it up. It asked children to trust process rather than words. It asked everyone to remain present, even when the future stayed unclear. That day, no vows were spoken. No comfort was forced. Only honesty stood between them. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Time slowed in ways none of them could control. Days were no longer counted by dates. They were measured by mornings that began gently, by afternoons where energy held, by nights that passed without alarms. Each day carried its own weight, neither promised nor dismissed. Hope stayed close. It showed up in Noah's drawings taped to the wall, in the way he asked for colors instead of answers, in the way he smiled when Ryan read to him, pausing to explain words without being asked. Hope lived in these moments, quiet and earned. Fear stayed too. It waited in pauses between updates, in the careful tone of doctors, in the silence that followed questions without clear replies. Fear did not shout. It lingered. Aaliyah learned to hold both without letting either lead. She did not demand certainty. She did not deny reality. She focused on today, on what Noah needed in the next hour, on what steadiness looked like now. Ryan learned the same lesson. He stopped asking how much time remained. He asked how to use it well. He adjusted his work without complaint. Meetings moved. Priorities shifted. He did not announce these changes. He simply showed up more often. Noah noticed. Today feels like a good day, he said one morning. Aaliyah smiled. It does. Ryan nodded. Let's keep it that way. Hope beside fear did not cancel each other. They balanced. They taught patience. They taught attention. They taught presence. Aaliyah realized she no longer feared moments ending as much as she once had. What mattered was how they were filled. She had learned that love did not need certainty to exist fully. Ryan felt the same. He had built a life around outcomes. Now he built days around connection. He accepted that hope did not need proof to matter. It needed care. Noah lived inside that balance without naming it. He rested when he needed to. He asked questions when they came. He trusted that honesty would meet him where he stood. Time moved forward, not rushed, not delayed, just present. Ryan stopped trying to make moments impressive. Early on, the instinct returned, the urge to mark time with something memorable. A trip, a plan, a gesture big enough to mean something if the ending came sooner than hoped. He felt it rise and let it pass. Accountability asked for something quieter. It asked him to show up when nothing special was happening, to stay during long afternoons where conversation faded, to sit through silence without filling it with reassurance, to do what he said, every time, without reminding anyone he was doing it. Ryan learned that presence repeated daily mattered more than effort displayed once. He took Noah to appointments and waited outside rooms without checking his phone. He learned the names of nurses and thanked them without urgency. He helped Aaliyah with logistics she never asked him to handle and accepted correction without defensiveness. He did not ask for recognition. He accepted responsibility. Accountability showed up when plans changed and he adapted without complaint. When Noah canceled a visit because he felt tired and Ryan said, "We'll try again tomorrow," and meant it. When Aaliyah set boundaries and Ryan respected them without questioning their fairness. This was not redemption. It was consistency. Aaliyah noticed the difference immediately. She had seen grand gestures before. They burned brightly and disappeared quickly. What Ryan offered now moved slowly and stayed. He did not perform care. He practiced it. She trusted actions more than words. One evening, after Noah fell asleep, Aaliyah spoke quietly. "You don't have to keep proving anything," she said. Ryan shook his head. "I'm not proving. I'm choosing. That distinction mattered. Accountability did not demand forgiveness. It did not ask for comfort. It simply stood present, willing to carry weight without being seen as heroic. Noah sensed it too. You don't rush anymore, he said once. Ryan smiled. I don't want to miss anything. Accountability did not promise outcomes. It honored time. And in honoring time, it honored love in its most reliable form. Presence became the language they all shared, not the kind spoken loudly, the kind practiced quietly. Ryan learned how to sit without fixing. Aaliyah learned how to lean without guarding. Noah learned how to rest without explaining. They filled time with ordinary things, reading the same book twice because Noah liked one page, sharing fruit cut into uneven pieces, watching clouds drift past the window and guessing shapes without needing answers. These moments carried no weight beyond being lived. Love showed itself in attention. Ryan noticed when Noah's hands tired and offered to hold the sketchbook. He noticed when Aaliyah's shoulders tightened and made space without asking why. He stayed even when nothing happened. Aaliyah noticed how Ryan listened now, how he waited for cues, how he asked what helped rather than assuming. She allowed closeness to grow without naming it. She let safety arrive first. Noah noticed everything. He noticed when laughter came easier. He noticed when silence felt calm rather than heavy. He noticed when both adults stayed in the room together without tension. One evening, as light faded, Noah spoke softly. I like when we're all here. Aaliyah nodded. Ryan said nothing. He stayed. No promises were made. No timelines were spoken. They understood something important together. Time does not respond to demand. Love does not need guarantees. Presence is a choice renewed daily. Whatever came next would come. They would meet it with honesty, not illusion. With care, not performance. With attention, not fear. The ending remained open, not unfinished. Some stories close with certainty. Others stay open because life does. Now pause and reflect. When time feels short, what do you believe matters most? If this story stayed with you, stay tuned for the next part. Share your thoughts in the comments. Like this video to support stories grounded in truth. Share it with someone who values presence over promises. Subscribe to Love Tales with Mr. Easton for stories that stay with the heart. Thank you for waiting with them.